Hey everybody. Well, I'm here today to talk about the latest episode of Better Call Saul, uh, Axe and Grind. This is the sixth episode, the penultimate one in the first half of season 6. So we're getting closer and closer to the finish line. Uh, I just can't wait to to see what happens with Saul and Kim and Gene and Howard and all of them. Breaking Bad. Even though I just was introduced to it a few years ago, I watched it so many times. I I love it. It's my favorite show in existence, and Better Call Saul is just top notch as well. It's not quite as good, in my opinion, um, but it could almost hold its own. There are a few things that are uh, better than Breaking Bad, but that's not what this is about. This is about last night's episode. So, yeah, we all came into this show thinking we were going to see the downfall of this one guy and how he became Saul Goodman. And so, what we got was kind of that story. But what we're getting is also a very different story as well. Um, Something more akin to what he's doing, what, what he's dealing with, but it's kind of darker, and that is Kim. Her whole downfall, that's the real tragedy of the show, I think. Because he's had bad influence on her, of course, but I think that she's never really been concerned about consequences as long as it doesn't get her in legal trouble. Um, Now she's officially broken bad, and she's pushed things even further and further. And now we officially have this whole situation where they're trying to find someone to impersonate this uh, real life uh, judge for the Sandpiper case from season 1. And it's funny that I think, at least, the case that made Jimmy a pretty good lawyer in the first place was uh, or is going to be the one that becomes his downfall, and in large part because of Kim and her actions here, because he, the very end of the episode, sees this guy at the store where he's buying a bottle of that tequila from season 2 that they uh, bought when they conned that guy. Um, he's like, "Oh no, this is a bad idea," and she's like, "Nope, not stopping." And she does a Yui, and she turns away from this huge job opportunity, this honest opportunity, just like Jimmy has so many times before. That Cliff, I think his name is, has offered her earlier in this episode, and funnily enough, she was only ever talking to him in this season because she wanted to put some dirt on Howard uh, a few episodes back. And so I'm curious to see where all this ends up. Meanwhile, Lalo Salamanca goes and questions. I thought initially this was one of Werner Ziegler's sons, but it turns out it's one of his former German co-workers who helped him on the expedition project. So, excavation. Sorry. But yeah, so yeah, we got this pretty gruesome scene uh, with the axe where he chops down Lalo, but that's not enough to deter Lalo because he's like, "Oh, you've only broke my ribs," and he gets up and like slices the guy with a hidden little dagger, uh, and then chops off his leg or whatever, and then he keeps him alive for interrogation. And we don't see a whole lot of Gus because Juan Carlo Esposito, the guy who plays Gus, actually directed this episode. And it was a pretty well directed episode, if I say so myself. So, overall, what do I think? I think that this didn't make me as anxious as the other ones, but as I predicted, they left you off at just the right point where you'd be just anxious over the next 7 days, just waiting for that next episode to come out, that final episode, at least for this part one. So I can't wait to see this next episode. Can't wait to see the whole thing in its entirety. I also forgot to mention the Francesca making that phone call and Jimmy setting up the whole office, but yeah, that's not particularly relevant. I really like this episode, so yeah, it'll give us enough until we see the next episode. Poor Howard, though. Poor Howard.